Hello and welcome to another edition of Middle East Matters. I'm Thomas Waterhouse and here's what's coming up. Voter apathy plagues polling day as Iraqis pick their next lawmakers several months ahead of schedule. The Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr and his party have claimed victory. The people of Lebanon see some light again, but there's a long way to go before they might fully leave the darkness of their crippling power crisis. And simulating life on the red planet will be taking you to a 40-kilometre wide crater in Israel, where a team of astronauts are being put through their paces. First then, for the fifth time since Saddam Hussein's regime was toppled, the people of Iraq have elected their next batch of parliamentarians. But persistent frustrations with both the political system and politicians saw turnout reach just over 40%. The Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr has claimed victory and promised to build a government without any foreign interference.
Scenes of euphoria on the streets of Sadr city, the Baghdad slum named after firebrand Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr, who will play a leading role in the bartering to form a new Iraqi government. Initial results from Sunday's parliamentary election give his movement the largest share of the vote, with more than 70 seats.
والأحزاب أن تتحكم في الأموال والخيرات بل هي للشعب وسيحاسب كل فاسد أيا كان.
His bloc saw off competition from the Fatah alliance, which lost seats. The group, which is linked to Shia militias and is backed by neighbouring Iran, rose to prominence during the war with the Islamic State group. A pro-Iranian TV channel quoted its leader, Hadi al-Ameri, calling the election a farce and saying he wouldn't accept the results, whatever the cost. Another big voice in negotiations to form a government could be the Speaker of Parliament, Mohammed al-Halbousi. His Sunni bloc came in second place. But the overall loser of the vote could be Iraq's fledgling democracy itself. Barely 41% of eligible voters came to the polls, a slap in the face for those who had billed this election as a chance to shake up the political elite. Iraqis say they're sick and tired of a system that sees political horse trading going on behind closed doors to hand out key government posts. 2 years after protesters took to the streets, little has been done to lift ordinary Iraqis out of economic misery.
Well, 2 years after Iraq was rocked by a huge wave of anti-government protests led by the young and the disgruntled, France 24 has been to meet one activist who still lives in fear. This is just a short extract from our longer film.
شخصياً أنه أنا ميليشيا ودت رسول خاص وبلغني رسمياً أنه أنت إذا رجعت حياتك تنتهي خلاص رسمياً يعني مو كان رسائل قلت لك هسه لا يعني صعب أذكر اسمها لأنه بالأخير حياتي تنتهي خلاص.
Hussein al-Horabi fled from Nasiriyah, a city in the south that has long been the epicenter of the protests. He's a leading face of the movement in a region vital to the Iraqi economy. He now lives on the run, his family home targeted by an explosive device.
الحكومة لا تعلن من هذه الجهات التي تنفذ العمليات الإرهابية. بالتأكيد هذا إرهاب يعني تفجير البيوت الآمنة يعني أنا جدتي إلى الآن من تفجير بيتي هي مصابة. حينما نقيم دعاوى لا تنفذ هذه الدعاوى حقيقة.
Hussein al-Horabi now dreams of a life in politics.
أن هناك واجب أخلاقي علي التضحيات التي سقطت في تشرين أن أوصل صوتهم. المعاناة الكبيرة والألم والحرمان الذي وقع على المناطق الجنوبية بالذات تكرر بعد سقوط نظام البعث ونظام صدام حسين. لا عدالة اجتماعية، لا خدمات، لا فرص عمل متساوية بين العراقيين. هذا ما دفع الشارع العراقي إلى الخروج باحتجاجات تشرين وثورة تشرين.
It was from the disadvantaged south that militias recruited en masse to fight the Islamic State group. Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, Iraq's highest Shia authority, called for taking up arms against the jihadis in 2014. Since then, these armed groups have seen an unprecedented rise in power with the help of neighboring Iran. Today, they are accused of wanting to snuff out the October Revolution.
نحن أبناء المجتمع الجنوبي، نحن أبناء الهم العراقي، وننحدر من نفس المناطق التي يدعون الدفاع عنها، لكنهم وجهوا بنادقهم وكواتمهم نحو رؤوسنا، وهم يعتقدون أن الدولة العراقية الحديثة التي يطالب بها أبناء تشرين إن تحققت وكانت سيتم زوال هؤلاء الميليشيات.
Next, from totally off to partially back on. For the second time in recent weeks, Lebanon has been crippled by another major blackout. This time around, the army saved the day by supplying reserves to the country's two biggest and fuel-starved power stations. The electricity shortages are a lingering and painful reminder of the political and economic crises that have rocked Lebanon for many months. For more, we can speak now to Sibylle Rizk. She's the Director of Public Policy at the Beirut-based NGO Kulluna Irada. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. First of all, the supply might be back to its rather feeble pre-blackout levels where you are, but this is a fuel crisis that runs deep. Just what are its origins?
Well, there are multiple components to this crisis, but they can all be brought down to one explanation, the fact that Lebanon is a failed state in the sense that it is not being able to cater for the most basic needs of its citizens. The energy crisis is the result of one major feature of the Lebanese political system, which is based on capturing state resources and dividing the pie between the sectarian forces. It takes just one leader to veto the pie allocation and stop any policy decision, even if it's at the expense of a whole nation. This explains why there have been no investment in the sector for more than 20 years, so we don't have enough power plants in terms of capacity to cater for the demands. Cost of production is huge because we have thermal plants, but no gas to power them. Second, even if the public utility is a monopoly, a state monopoly, it has been running huge deficits and contributed to the public debt up to $40 billion. This is enormous. And third, now that and it's the most recent development, now that Lebanon is bankrupt as an economy, the government doesn't have any more dollars to import the fuel needed to power the plants.
Now, many households in Lebanon have got used to simply using private generators. Will the embattled government ever be able to get hold of the resources that it needs to try and compete with those generators?
Well, reforming the electricity sector has been the first item on the agenda of reforms for several years now. Technical solutions, policy decisions are very well known. We just need to build two thermal power plants. It's not rocket science. We need to rehabilitate the transmission grid and to promote renewable energies. It's not about technicalities, it's about the political will. There's no such thing until now, and the Lebanese are left hostages of these private generators the service of their cost has increased tremendously recently.
And this is an energy crisis that has also spilled over Lebanon's borders with key implications for the wider region.
Yes, as always, Lebanon is a playground for geopolitics. On the one hand, you have Hezbollah that is importing fuel from Iran and promoting the influence of Iran in Lebanon. And Tehran has been offering to build plants in Beirut. On the other hand, you have the US, Washington, that is trying to broker a regional arrangement with Egypt, Jordan, and Syria to provide gas through a pipeline to Lebanon. And of course, the Assad regime would benefit from this. You also have France, because Emmanuel Macron is one of the main supporters of the Mikati government, who's still trying to enforce or to believe in the ability to enforce reforms. But for now and in the foreseeable future, unfortunately, electricity is still a luxury good for the Lebanese.
Sibylle Rizk, thank you very much for joining us here on France 24.
Thanks to you.
Thank you very much. We head now deep into the sands of southern Israel. A colossal crater there is now the temporary home for 6 astronauts who are spending their time carrying out tests and experiments in the hope of one day making history by stepping foot on the red planet. With more, here's Selena Sykes.
At a first glance, it's easy to be mistaken in thinking that these images are on a planet in a galaxy far, far away. But this is actually on planet Earth. These astronauts are in the Ramon crater in the desert in southern Israel. Its rocky landscape has been chosen as the location to simulate the conditions of life on Mars, to prepare for what they hope will one day be the first ever human exploration of the red planet.
The Maktesh Ramon is an almost unique geological structure in the world. And what we found here after many thousands of kilometers of scouting is that the Maktesh Ramon has a lot of geological features which have twins on Mars.
Bye-bye. A team of 6 astronauts from across the world will be living here for the next month for the project run by Israel's Space Agency and the Austrian Space Forum. Wearing mock spacesuits fitted with cameras, microphones and self-contained breathing systems, their vital signs and movements will be monitored. They will also carry out more than 20 experiments in geology, biology and medicine, developed by more than 200 scientists from 25 countries.
We're 6 people working in tight space under a lot of pressure to do a lot of tasks. There are bound to be challenges, but I trust my crew that we're able to overcome those challenges. We learned how to work together, we train together, and we're very confident.
After decades of scientists and engineers dreaming of one day going to Mars, this mission could make it a reality. Though according to experts, a manned exploration of the red planet will take another 10 years to prepare.
And we end this edition with a ride on the public transport system in Istanbul. Locals there have noticed a familiar face on the buses, ferries and trains, but he's no busy commuter, but rather a stray dog who goes by the name of Boji. The data gathered from a tracking microchip device that's been attached to him show that he regularly travels around 30 kilometres per day and that the city's trams are his favourite means of getting around. And that brings us to the end of this latest edition of Middle East Matters, but do stay with us here on France 24.